Why do they doubt the kid? I'm about to prove them all wrong again. I got a low tolerance, cause they don't even know what the problem is. It's me. You waiting on the boy to fail, to hold your breath and face your death. Cause you play a roulette with each step. I progress, no less. Go ahead and place your bets. Cause we know who we are, we know we top tier. Cause all the hate that you bring, we know it stops here. I'm taking off like a rocket here, ain't stopping here. It's strange how they cannot see the future, but see profit here. Wait up, we gon' always win. Tell 'em I can't take no loss. My team hold no else, no. Aiming for the top, can't make it by myself.
What's going on, kids? What is going on? It is a Wednesday show. It's a Wednesday show, first and foremost, and I'll remind you again in the middle of the show, we are off tomorrow. There's some scheduling stuff going on that we absolutely cannot avoid. We are off tomorrow. So we have obviously all of our shows. You can choose one of your more, the ones you like the best, maybe rewatch. But we will definitely be back Friday, so it's just a one-day thing. And there's, we're watching some stuff. As you know, we're watching some stuff. We've talked about what we're watching. One thing we're watching, we're on Merkley Watch. We did this once before on this show with Cory Booker, right? Or with Hakeem Jeffries. That's right, with Hakeem. Yeah, that's right. Booker was before we started up. Booker's got the current record, okay, of speaking on the floor. 25 hours and 5 minutes is the current record by Booker. But Jeffries, he went for it. When we were doing this show, he went for it. We were on Jeffries' watch, and he was talking for a long time. And now Merkley's doing it again. Merkley's doing it this time. He started at 6-something yesterday, and we're gonna get to some of what he has to say as the show continues. See if he can make it through to that part of our show. Right, a little test for Jeff. Can you hold on? Can you hold on to make our story more relevant by the end of the show? do a little production work for Brett Breaks Things. I appreciate you, Jeff. But he's going strong. We'll talk about some of the things he said. We will. But wanted to catch you up first. Not going to spend a ton of time on it at all, but wanted to catch you up on this story. This story has a nice little bow. Paul Ingrassia, we talked about him yesterday. We talked about him a week ago. Perv, right, goes on this business meeting with people from his department, allegedly cancels a young female's room and magically has booked her to stay with him for the night. They said nothing happened. She filed a report. She filed a complaint. 2 days later, she pulled the complaint. Because why? Because you know why. You know why she pulled it. You bleeping with the wrong one. That is a Trump friend. Somebody close to Trump in this administration. Somebody with power. Of course she pulled the report. And then Mr. Ingrassia shows up on our story yesterday with all the delightful things he said in those text chats. Talking about, I have a Nazi streak in me, I'll admit it. Saying that Martin Luther King Day, Juneteenth, they all need to go to the seventh circle of hell. Yeah, those charming things and others. Please check out the show yesterday if you don't know what I'm talking about. Just watch the first segment. I really lay out some of the more despicable bits of that. And then stick around for the young Republican story after that was closely related. Also charming individuals. So at the end of that story, I told you, well, he's up for a bigger job, Office of Special Counsel, to lead the Office of Special Counsel, the office that oversees whistleblower complaints and discrimination complaints. That's the twisted joke of all of this. The biggest racist Trump knows he picks to hear discrimination complaints within the federal government. That's wonderful. Well, some people had come out and said this isn't going to go so well for him, including Senate Majority Leader John Thune, among other people, has said this should not go forward. His nomination should be pulled. It's not going to get the votes. Ron Johnson spoke out against him. Rick Scott spoke out against him. James Lankford spoke out against him. And guess what? Quote from Mr. Ingrassia, I will be withdrawing myself from Thursday's HSGAC hearing to lead the Office of Special Counsel because, listen to this, because unfortunately, I do not have enough Republican votes at this time. Unfortunately, no, the fortunes of you have nothing to do with this. Your fortunes have nothing to do with this. Unfortunately, no. It was inevitably you don't have the Republican votes because you're a scumbag racist pervert. That's why you inevitably, not unfortunately, you inevitably did not have the votes. He's trying to say, these pesky Republicans over here in the Senate, it's unfortunate, but they won't vote for me. He continues, and this I found also interesting. I appreciate the overwhelming support that I have received throughout this process, and I will continue to serve President Trump and this administration to make America white again. No, he said great again. I'm sorry, that must have been Freudian. This guy. Who is giving him overwhelming support at this point? I'm just curious. Like, is the Ku Klux Klan themselves, like, reaching out to Paul and giving him support? Like, who is giving him overwhelming support? I'm just curious. Who's doing that. And by the way, this is kind of becoming a trend with Trump's picks. Kind of becoming a trend. Former Deputy Attorney General John Gard was paused his judicial nomination was paused because a charity that he runs is under investigation. E.J. Anthony, you remember his temporary pick and the would-be eventual commissioner of the BLS? Yeah, he's been fired. They're saying, well, he may have been underqualified. Really, he put out numbers that were not favorable, just like McIntyre did, and he got fired. And earlier this year, Dave Weldon's nomination to lead the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, that was pulled mysteriously. I hope some reporting comes out on that. So picks are getting pulled, picks are getting fired. Ingracia, sorry, Don, your little joke didn't pan out. Sorry, those texts got released. Maybe he was even a little more racist than you had even anticipated. So Ingracia will not be leading that special counsel. He won't be leading it. Won't be leading the office. So that's a good thing. That's how we wanted to start the story. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Will it be the last time we hear from Paul Ingracia? That remains to be seen. Something like this that would disqualify you in the past in terms of, a presence in our government, something that would completely kill your career and, have you running in shame for the rest of your life, that does not disqualify you from future contributions in this administration. So will we hear from Paul again? I'm not going to sit here and say, no, this killed his career, because I don't know that that's true. How sad is that? How sad is that? You know what else is sad? That you and I will be paying for yet another Donald Trump grift. I said in some of the first weeks of this show that this dude is an innovator of the grift. He's innovating the grift. He's not just your regular grifter. He is a grifter that grifters aspire to be. He's completely innovating the grift. He found this lush, green, fertile land to grift the executive branch, and he is milking it and grifting it for every cent that it's worth. This time it comes on our backs. This time it's you and me. He's grifting you and me this time. In 2023, President Trump filed a claim, a standard Form 95 claim, to the DOJ. That claim was seeking damages because of the violations of his rights due to the special counsel investigation into the 2016 Russia-Trump campaign collusion. He's saying it was weaponized and it was violating my rights. That's one claim. He wants millions and millions in damages for that. Then later, in the summer of 2024, he filed another claim for hundreds of millions worth of damages, saying the government violated his rights when they improperly raided his Mar-a-Lago home looking for unclassified documents. He filed these two standard standard 95 forms. Now, these forms are given to a government agency with a complaint and damages attached. That agency in this case was the DOJ. Now, it's the DOJ's job to then decide, should we settle with this claimant? Should we settle on these claims? Or should we not and let him sue us in court? It's a precursor to suing the government, this procedure. It's called the Federal Tort Claims Act. The Federal Tort Claims Act. Now, here's the rub. These claims were submitted when Merrick Garland was the head of the DOJ, or was AG, right? Head of the DOJ. Under the Biden administration, he filed these. Merrick Garland decided not to decide. He sat on these. He sat on these claims, and he sat on these claims, and he sat on these claims. And these claims rolled over into the new administration. You see where I'm going with this. It is the AG's decision whether to settle, or the DOJ's rather. Specifically in this case, Todd Blanche has the decision-making power. Todd Blanche does, and one Stanley Woodward Jr. Okay? Both of them have served as Trump's personal lawyer, close friends, and now they hold positions in the DOJ. Merrick Garland, man, you sneaky little snake in the grass. What did you do sitting on these claims? What did you do? Did you, A, know that you would kind of gain a little favor with Trump if you did him this sneaky little favor? This little maneuver that won't be seen by the American public? Hey, if Trump wins, he's going to appoint a whole new official structure in the DOJ. I'll be out of this. And whoever he appoints will just greenlight this. They won't say, Trump, sue us. They'll just settle. Of course they will. So I'm not going to make a decision here. I'm going to do Trump this little favor. Or B, or possibly both, if I don't settle, if I decide to let Trump sue the government over these garbage lawsuits, these terrible claims, both completely baseless, both have no merit, right? That's obvious. I almost skipped over that part. It just seems so obvious to you, my audience, that they would have no basis, these claims. No merit. And they do. They have no merit. So Garland would have to let Trump sue the government. Well, if he takes the presidency, I could be part of the retribution tour. Instead of Comey or Schiff, maybe I'm moved to the front of the line on these indictments. What will his retribution look like? I better not. I don't want that smoke. I better not make that move. I'll just sit on him. And Trump takes over. Here comes Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche and Stanley Woodward Jr. And now the decision rests with them whether us, the taxpayer, pay his $230 million worth of claims or to let their dear leader sue the government. That's their decision. Blanche, Woodward Jr. You see where I'm going with this? I mean, this grift. This is extraordinary. Extraordinary. His DOJ is going to settle with him for $230 million. Just that simple. Bennett Gershom, an ethics professor at Pace University, said, "What a travesty. The ethical conflict is just so basic and fundamental, you don't need a law professor to explain it. And then to have the people in the Justice Department decide whether his claims should be successful or not, and these are the people who serve him deciding whether he wins or loses, it's bizarre and almost too outlandish to believe." I agree with that. So it's so funny. He brings up the ethics of this, right? The ethics of this. That seems like a job for the DOJ's top ethics advisor. That's a position. Top ethics advisor. Sounds like a job for him. His name is Joseph Terrell. He is the top ethics advisor for the DOJ. Pam Bondi fired him. One of her first moves as the AG, she fired him. And you're wondering, who is the ethics advisor now, Brett? She didn't put anybody back in that position. It's empty. Because what use does this administration and this DOJ have for an ethics advisor? What possible positive contributions could an ethics advisor possibly offer to Trump? Everything he does is unethical. What possible purpose would a person like that have in this administration? None. No purpose. And Pam knew it better than anybody, so she fired the guy. So the person whose job it is to red flag this doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. So we get to pay $230 million worth of claims as Trump claims and then pays himself. Trump's claims in 2023, 2024 for $230 million. Trump's DOJ greenlights the claims payment. That's innovation of the grift right there.
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. Now back to Brett Breaks Things, smashing spin, silencing the noise, and keeping it all facts, no fluff.
As what I had to go through. They raided my house in Florida. It was an illegal raid. I have a lawsuit that was doing very well, and when I became president, I said, I'm sort of suing myself. I don't know, how do you settle the lawsuit? I'll say, give me X dollars, right? And I don't know what to do with the lawsuit. It's a great lawsuit, and now I won. It sort of looks bad. I'm suing myself, right? So I don't know, but that was a lawsuit that was very strong, very powerful. They raided illegally my house in Florida, Mar-a-Lago.
The reason he was talking about that a week ago, that was last Wednesday, is because they know damn well the optics of this. I can just see how this plays out, right? Pam and Todd and Trump are talking about this like, hey, Pam, how about that $230 million double claims that I filed? When are you going to pay me for that? Pay me my money. And Pam's like, yeah, no problem. I'll have Todd okay that. But you know this looks bad, sir. It's your claim, and now your DOJ is greenlighting the payment of it. From the taxpayers' dollars, this looks bad. And then Trump says, I guarantee you something to the effect of, it's okay. I'm the biggest, most strongest speaker ever, and I'll make this okay. I'll start talking about it now before we do it, and I'll speak real bigly and real strongly and real quickly, and I'll make everybody okay with it because I'm an ultimate salesman. I'll sell this to the American people. I'll make them laugh. I'll talk to the press about it a little bit. I'll get them ready. I'll get them primed, and I'll get my side, ready so this doesn't hit so hard. And maybe they can start doing the mental gymnastics to fight the radical left-wing talking points on the tail end of this. That's how this played out. So a week ago, he started talking about it, right? Hey, bigly, strongly. I got to pay myself. It doesn't look so good. Yeah, it doesn't look so good, Don. Then a week after that, just yesterday, he picks it up again because now this thing's happening.
New York Times is reporting that your legal team is seeking $230 million from your own Justice Department now in response to the investigations into you. Is that something you want your legal team to do?
I don't know what the numbers are. I don't even talk to them about it. All I know is that they would owe me a lot of money, but I'm not looking for money. I'd give it to charity or something. I would give it to charity, any money. But look, what they did, they rigged the election. And as you know, we had, in one case, 60 Minutes had to pay us a lot of money. George Slobodanopoulos had to pay us a lot of money, and they already paid. They paid me a lot of money because what they did was wrong. And, when somebody does what's wrong. Now, with the country, it's interesting because I'm the one that makes the decision, right? And, that decision would have to go across my desk. And it's awfully strange to make a decision where I'm paying myself. In other words, did you ever have one of those cases where you have to decide how much you're paying yourself in damages? But I was damaged very greatly, and any money that I would get, I would give to charity.
Okay, two things. One, George Slobodanopoulos. That is a throwback to when he used to give us really good nicknames. It's so good. George Slobodanopoulos, Low Energy Jeb, Lil Marco, all the hits, man. You remember that? The one redeeming quality of this dude in his presidency, the nicknames, the delicious nicknames. I miss stuff like George Slobodanopoulos. Come on, Trump, step it up. Two, yes, I heard him. I'm going to give it all to charity. I heard him. And I know that if MAGA or Trump-supporting right-wingers get a hold of this story, they're going to take that and they're going to run with it. And yeah, they already are. Scott's saying they already are. They're going to run with that, right? He's giving it all to charity. You know what? I'll give you your kudos when I find out where that money goes. When you actually have given that money away and some lucky charity is sitting here saying, hi, Donald Trump just gave us $230 million. Then like the presidential library, right? I will then give you your kudos, Mr. President. Although I would have I would have liked to have been asked what charity I might consider giving to, considering it's my money and Scotty's money and your money. Nobody asked us. Nobody asked us if we were ready to donate $230 million to an unnamed charity. So let's just wait till he hands that money over, shall we? Before we start talking about how bigly, strongly, and greatly his charity is. So, yeah, Scotty, what's up, big dog?
I'm going to put my money right now that charity is either going to be the new ballroom that they're building at the White House.
Oh, or that statue.
Or the statue, or where I think it really is going to go is to his library that he's building in Miami.
Okay.
That's where.
All right.
That's the charity he's going to go.
So there. Okay, Scotty.
In my opinion.
Okay. All right. I like it. That's so the Arctic Trump, his library. Or what was the first one you said? The ballroom. Okay, so either the ballroom, the Arctic Trump, or the library in Florida. We'll see where that money goes. If it doesn't go to one of those three and it actually goes to a charity, I will give him all the kudos in the world, although I would have liked to have been consulted on this, considering it's our money. That's all. That's all. Now, in that same gaggle, that one where I just showed you, it was during Diwali. Thank you, Scotty. It was during a celebration of Diwali. Of course, right on task, right on point, in reverence to the Indian people, he starts talking about the election. Listen to this.
Or really, I think it's got to be handled in a proper way. If it's not handled in a proper way, we don't want it to happen again. We can never let what happened in the 2020 election happen again. We just can't let that happen. And so the way we go, I know Cash is working on it, everybody's working on it, and certainly Tulsi's working on it. We can't let that happen again to our country. Look at what's happened where you have millions of people being allowed to come into our country, all because of a crooked election, where they come from prisons, they come from jails, they come from mental institutions and insane asylums, they're drug dealers. The people that they've allowed to come into our country, we cleaned.
Christie's talking about it. Tulsi's talking about it. He's talking about DHS and DNI. We're talking about it. We're talking about election security. It's not all they're talking about. And those aren't the only people talking. In comes new Trump hire, Heather Honey. Heather Honey. Now, that name, who is that? Brett, I know that name. She is one of the most prominent 2020 election deniers out there. She has been a part of multiple cases, investigations, and scam theories over the entire election denial period that we saw this country go through. She's been one of the most prominent figures. She's an election denier enthusiast. Let's put it that way. She now has a new job within our government. Within the DHS, she's the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Election Integrity. We made it up and gave it to her. So we made up weaponization czar, Ed Martin gets a job. We make up Deputy Assistant Secretary for Election Integrity and give Heather a job. All the best people. All the best people. I'm going to get to all the best people. Not the only new hire. But this one's interesting, man. And she look, there has been cuts. There has been worry among election officials in this country. People in our cybersecurity, in our DHS, there's been a lot of worry about the turnover and about what the president's been saying. And they decided to have a phone call with election officials from all 50 states. Call in all together and talk to Heather Honey, our new Deputy Assistant Secretary for Election Integrity. And man, did she talk. And the election officials, they expected to hear things like, we're going to ensure election integrity in this way. And we're going to ensure integrity in that way. They only thought that if they hadn't been paying attention to every single one of Trump's other hires. If you had been paying attention to who Trump is putting in influential positions in this government, you'd know exactly what to expect. And for those people, here you go. She talked about a lot of stuff. She used portions of the meeting to echo rhetoric that was infused by the right wing and the activist movements after the election. She just basically, reiterated widespread election fraud claims, theories, conspiracies. She began that way. She complained about the cybersecurity experts that were tasked with combating misinformation about the elections, saying they had strayed from their mission. They had strayed. She mentioned repeatedly a report that is often cited by election conspiracists that support their claims that the voting machines were tampered, especially in Pennsylvania. Okay, she repeatedly mentioned the voting machines were tampered with, repeatedly on this phone call. The people on the call were just stunned. They couldn't believe what they were hearing. Most of them. She suggested the new administration could declare a national emergency and justify dictating new rules to state and local governments, on how to conduct elections. That tied in with his plenary authority over the military, and election day could look a lot different and a lot more well-armed. Just a lot different. Stay tuned on that. She said that she could base new guidelines on elections on more intensive investigations into the 2020 elections. In comes Mr. Kurt Olson. We'll get to him in a second. She said a few more things. We have some additional powers that didn't exist before. We can take those other steps without Congress, and we can mandate these states do things, and so on. I don't know if that's really feasible and if the people around the president would let him test that theory. She's floating fundamental changes to our elections, and how they are policed. People were absolutely stunned. This investigation she's talking about, in steps election denier and close personal friend of Mike Lindell, Kurt Olson. Kurt Olson, he is a special government employee. Now, new job, special government employee, 130 days, doesn't have to divest, doesn't have to stop any of his business ties. He's in for 130 days, and he is asking intelligence agencies to gather information about the 2020 election. He also said he was going to take this opportunity to weed out some government employees who he believes is disloyal to Mr. Trump. And what is he most famous for? He wanted the Supreme Court to completely overturn the election results for the presidency in Texas and have a special election conducted on the heels of this fraud. He spearheaded a case that he wanted the Supreme Court to see and overturn the Texas election. Now, he's got this 130-day special position to investigate the 2020 election, because that is what we need special governmental positions for. That's what is most pressing on the minds of American people right now. As the trade war looms, federalization of the troops, habeas corpus getting crapped on, This is what they have to assign special governmental positions for, the 2020 election. They also hired Marcy McCarthy, who spread widespread claims of voting machine fraud in Georgia. Why do I say widespread claims? Because at the time, she was the chairwoman of the DeKalb County Republican Party. And she was spreading these debunked, time and time again, claims that the voting machines in Georgia were tampered with. She now heads up CISA, the Director of Public Affairs at the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. These are the people who really ensure election integrity, who stop hacking, who stop interference, any type of election integrity interference at all in these machines. She now heads up the division. And by the way, that division has been gutted. DHS gutted that whole division. Not only are our elections more vulnerable than before, we have a wacko at the head of protecting them.
We'll be back to break it all down. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. You're back with Brett Breaks Things, where the truth hits harder than the headlines.
Okay. We're getting to a story that we had to push a little bit, and it's one of those stories that if we had gotten to it earlier, great, but since since the time that we really started digging into it, it has blossomed, it has matured, and it is now ready to pay dividends on air. Why do I bring up that analogy? Why do I bring up that analogy? Because the United States is looking for a similar bet on Argentina. It's a similar bet. We've talked a lot about Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary. We talked a lot about him. A lot. We talked about how Scott Bessent knew the effects of what I'm about to lay out before the farmers did, before the media did, before all of us started to get a view at what they had cooking. Miss Brooke Rollins, our agriculture secretary, was texting with Scott Bessent, and we got some shots of that. And Brooke was very concerned about the optics of what was about to play out, and it is about to play out. Now, Scott Bessent, he bets on the market all the time. He's made his money doing that via hedge funds, especially one hedge fund. A hedge fund run by a guy named Robert Citron. Discovery Capital Management is the name of that hedge fund. Robert Citron and Capital Management have made Bessent millions on these kind of bets. I bring up this gentleman's name for a reason, and we'll get there in a second. I mean, Bessent had a $10 billion bet against the British pound, paid off millions. He wagered against the Bank of England on their currency years ago, right, in the 90s. And then in 2013, using George Soros' money, he worked with Soros. George Soros. He netted $1 billion through Soros' fund with a giant bet against the Japanese yen. This is what he does. Bets against currency and sees if it pays off down the road. Using guys like Robert Citron of a hedge fund, billionaire hedge fund, and George Soros' hedge fund, right? The evil George Soros. God, it just really highlights that they would love to have us fighting. They love to have red versus blue fighting, because while we're fighting, they're working together in the upper echelons of our society, making money with each other, laughing at us. While we sit here tribally fighting on the ground level of our country, Scott Bessent and George Soros are up there making billions, laughing. It's crazy. It's crazy. But I continue. We are going to bail out Argentina. You heard about this. You definitely heard about this by now. But I'm glad we waited to bring it to you. I really am. We talked about it. We talked about the swap, a direct swap, $20 billion for Argentine pesos and American dollars. Swap, basically a loan, $20 billion. Well, Mr. Bessent sat in on an IMF meeting and kind of floated the idea of another $20 billion going to Argentina. Oh yeah, we're talking $40 billion altogether. Bessent, he believes that the peso is undervalued at the moment, and he believes that it will come back, and when it does, America will make a whole bunch of money. That's the bet. That's the bet. Now, somebody from the IMF actually spoke on it. Not too many people spoke on this much, but one, Martin Mulison, a former IMF official, said they're putting their reputation on the line, especially Bessent's reputation. They would have a lot of egg on their face. Speaking of, if this fails, if the peso does not strengthen against the dollar, if this bet fails with our money, especially while the farmers are struggling and we don't have money for ACA subsidies, we're giving Argentina $40 billion. You got to keep the backdrop clear. You got to keep the macro in mind. Bessent is using a huge, a huge stockpile of money called the Exchange Stabilization Fund that is under the control of our Treasury Department. The Exchange Stabilization Fund. That's the money he's using to make this bet. Well, that's the money he used for the first $20 billion. The first $20 billion. That's what he used. Now, this is a fund that has foreign currency, holdings, debt, credit, all sorts of different assets go into this fund. It's worth about $200 billion after this little $20 billion withdrawal. It's worth about $200 billion in total assets. It's got about $40 billion liquid that it can toss around. And that's what he's using to make this bet. The first $20 million. The first $20 million. All right? And like I said, the Treasury Department, they get to make the decisions on this fund. They decide where it goes. Now, people are waiting for the rub. People who are familiar with the matter are waiting for the quid pro quo of it all. What will come to the United States for this first loan? That is starting to play out. That is starting to play out in terms of A, Argentina's uranium and lithium deposits, and B, their relationship with China. And we'll get to that. We'll get to that. But keep in mind, the IMF already, it has $164 billion in loans outstanding to the world. Different countries who are in different forms of economic crisis that the IMF, in partnership with the United States, has given them loans for, right? $164 billion in loans are out. A third of it, around $60 billion, is owed to the IMF from Argentina. That's a lot. That's a lot. This time, this loan, the United States completely cut the IMF out of the deal. Usually, almost every time when the U.S. gets it in its mind to bail somebody out, or the IMF does, they sit down together and they work it out. They talk about the terms, the future of the deal, how much to who. Almost always. This time, Scott Bessent completely cut the IMF out of the deal. Why? Why? Because they've got their own deal working that doesn't include the IMF or the money Argentina owes to them. I talked about watching The Sopranos, right? Me and my wife were watching The Sopranos. She hasn't seen it. I've seen it only once or twice. We already got through the part. You remember, if you watch the show, Davey Scatino. Davey Scatino owned a sporting goods store. He was lifetime friends with Tony and some of the gangsters, right? They've known each other a long time. And Davey Scatino needed a little liquid. So he went to Richie Aprile for a loan. Okay, so Davey Scatino owes Richie Aprile money. Then Scatino falls on harder times, and he takes a big swing. He goes to one of Tony's in-house poker games and borrows about 20 grand. Something like that from Tony to play that night with the big boys, and loses it all. Now, what do you think happened in the show? Exactly what I see happening in real life. Richie Aprile then went to Tony and said, "What are you doing lending this guy 20 grand? He owes me 60. Why didn't you just give the money to me if you're going to loan him money? It's my money. It's my money he lost at those poker tables. It's my money." And it created a big problem within the family. How is this any different? Argentina owes the IMF $60 billion. Scott Bessent goes right behind their back and says, "Here's $20 billion for you. We're going to boost up your economy. We'll see on the back end." The IMF has got to be. Now, they said in a statement, we look forward to working with the U.S. Treasury and Argentina to bolster the Argentine economy. Nice and political. That's what they're saying to the press. That's what they're saying on the record. I can only imagine the conversations going on behind closed doors as Scott Bessent completely cuts the IMF out and gives them $20 billion, about to be 40. Why do I say about to be 40? Because Scott Bessent is trying to twist the arm. He's trying to twist the arm of a bunch of major banks to come up with an additional $20 billion for Argentina. That's right. JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, they are being squeezed by Scott Bessent and the Treasury Department to come up with a $20 billion loan for Argentina. And they're telling Scott, "Look, man, the history of the peso does not tell us that this is a good investment. We're worried about our money. You tell us you want us to lend them this money. We need a little bit more assurance, a little bit more backing, Mr. Bessent. They won't approve this $20 billion loan, not without serious talks with the Secretary of the Treasury. They need more assurance. Bottom line, they're not convinced of this bet. Not convinced. They shouldn't be. Some people spoke on it. One Douglas A. Redeker, an international capital strategist, he said Argentina is the gift that keeps on giving. It is unbelievably predictable in its cyclicality. I said it at least 15 times in preparation. Cyclicality over the past decades, and there is always a new crop of investors and traders who think they know better. Mark Sobel, our former Treasury official, said we're the United States to offer Argentina a long-term support package to back an unsustainable exchange rate. That would be a major folly and waste of the U.S. taxpayers' dollars. So these banks aren't convinced. They're not convinced. The Treasury Department wants to squeeze them, but now they have the upper hand. Now that all of this has been made public, and Scott Bessent has already come out saying we want an extra $20 billion for them. We're going to really help Milei's economy. They're doing this just as Milei is facing a midterms, an election coming up. He needs the peso as strong as possible going into that election. That is Donald Trump's buddy, one of his biggest allies in the Latin American region. Trump can't have Milei lose power, period. This is a play to help Milei maintain power in Argentina, but not just that. You think that's all the U.S. is going to get out of this? Oh, no. That is not all the U.S. expects to get out of this. They're going to get much more. You know there's a quid pro quo. You know this government, this administration would never do anything like this without wetting their beak, without getting their portion of the grift back. We're not going to give the farmers the middle finger. And all the American taxpayers who are worried about their premiums, we're not going to give all of them the finger on this $40 billion bailout for your country without wetting our beak as well. So the question remains, what are they going to wet their beak with? I'll get to that.
Breaking politics, breaking narratives, breaking news. But first, we need a coffee break. Brett breaks things, where the stakes are high and the truth still matters.
All right, so what is the U.S. going to get in return for this $40 billion bailout to Milei facing his midterms? Trump does need Milei to stay in power, no doubt, especially with war with Venezuela on the horizon. It'd be nice to be able to station some troops and bases there, wouldn't it? I digress. What else do they get? It can't just be a possible win in the midterms that'll satiate the lust for money and power and greed of this administration. No way. And you'd be right if you thought that. No way. There's other things at play here. China and minerals. First, China. Scott Bessent and Luis Caputo, who is Argentina's economic minister, they have been in talks for weeks. This deal has been in the works since Trump took office. Milei was one of the very first people to show up at the White House after Trump's inauguration to congratulate him, of course, and start the process of this bailout. Get the ball rolling. This Caputo, he has been to the White House. He has talked to the White House. He has talked to Trump. He has talked to Bessent several times. Milei and Trump have met and talked several times from inauguration to now. This has been in the works. And then you add in the China factor. The China factor. China is Argentina's second largest trading partner, right behind Brazil. We are currently in a trade war with China. Not only has China walloped our soybean farmers by not buying one bean to the tune of $16.5 billion in export loss from the United States farmers, but now China is saying, we're hitting you with a huge tariff for our uranium and our lithium for your electronics. So we won't buy your soybean, and we're going to hit you with huge tariffs on the stuff you need for your electronics. Trump, in response, has said, okay, another 100% tariffs on you. I don't know what it's at now on China, 200, 400, 500. I don't know what it's up to for China at this point. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, they are going to meet about a week from now. Xi Jinping and Trump are going to see each other in South Korea in about a week. And they're going to talk about all of this. But in terms of Argentina, one, Besant wants Caputo, one, to dissolve greatly their trade partnership with China. Besant wants Argentina to buy and sell with the United States. It's great for Besant to try to get better prices for some of these minerals and products from Argentina. If we can get a better price for the American people, that's great. But to use Argentina as a piece on this chessboard in the game, in this tariff war game that they're playing, that's not so great. And that puts Milei in a bit of a position. It really does. But that's one thing they want. They want more trade with the U.S. to and from Argentina, less Chinese-Argentinian trade in general. But also, China is the primary source for Argentina's telecom and internet industry. They are the ones who built it and run it. Period. Local telecom giant Telecom Argentina recently agreed to receive a $74 million loan from the Bank of China. And Huawei, a Chinese technology company, they are restricted from conducting much business in the U.S. at all. They used to do a lot of our phones, but they've gone away. Trump has ended that. They run their 5G mobile network business in Argentina. Huawei does. China is also right now constructing a nuclear power plant to operate all of this Chinese technology. And China has invested billions of dollars into the Argentinian mining industry so they can get hold of the lithium and the uranium coming out of Argentina. First crack at it. We give you the money to mine it, keep it safe, get the transition going nice and smooth, and we'll take the profit. We'll take those off your hands. Thank you very much. Besant thinks that Milei will upend all of that over a $40 billion loan. Is he right? Is he right? What Besant says, Milei is committed to getting China out of Argentina. We do not want another failed China-led state in Latin America. What is Milei saying? Just recently, days ago, he went on TV in Argentina and denied that his government would cut ties with China. He said the Trump administration didn't even ask him to do it. He said, no, that's not true. Somebody's lying to somebody. Somebody's lying or squirming, caught between a rock and a hard place. I'm sure that in those several meetings between Besant and Caputo, that this guy from Argentina isn't sitting there telling Besant, nope, we're not cutting ties with China. We're not upending our entire internet structure. Nope, we're not doing it. That is not what he's saying to Besant. Not when Besant's ready to first give him $20, then $40 billion. As this deal matures for these two sides, not for you and me, not for the American farmer, not for our insurance, doesn't mature anything, doesn't forward or help or progress anything in terms of those things. This just helps Milei and the Trump administration. So, now Trump wants Argentina to help bring down meat prices. While the farmers in this country are absolutely struggling, especially the beef industry. Beef industry's big time struggling. Beef prices have risen about 15% this year to a record high $7 a pound. Yep. Now, they're saying there's several factors for beef prices being so high. Hotter weather and tariffs, more expensive farming equipment, munitions, and not munitions, but material to feed equipment and stuff to feed the cows and whatnot, and tariffs. It's really the tariffs that are driving the price up, especially the price of the stuff coming from Brazil. But Besant and Trump are out here saying, look, we'll buy some Argentinian beef. And that influx of cheaper beef will bring the price down. And the farmers are out here like, please don't do that. We're already losing a ton of money in this industry. And now you want to lower prices, lower our profit margin so you can buy Argentinian beef? You want to know what else is part? And Trump came out this morning. Cattle ranchers, who I love, don't understand that the only reason they are doing so well for the first time in decades is because I put tariffs on cattle coming into the United States, including a 50% tariff on Brazil. If it weren't for me, they would be doing just as they've done for the last 20 years. Terrible. He's talking to you, beef farmers. You've been doing terrible for the last 20 years, according to dear leader Trump. It would be nice if they would understand that, but they also have to get their prices down because the consumer is a very big factor in my thinking also. So, the farmers are out here taking a hit already. And then instead of buying their product, you buy Argentina's product, and then you go on True Social and blame them and call them terrible and tell them they have to lower their prices. We heard from some of the farmers on this.
Bill Schroeder has been farming for more than 50 years. His Schroeder Farm in South Newbury, with its 30 head of cattle, is a popular spot for locals to pick up fresh, locally raised meat products.
They like being able to get it.
They like to know where it comes from.
But local beef faces an obstacle, one that lawmakers in Concord have been grappling with for years. There aren't enough USDA-inspected slaughterhouses in New Hampshire, making it difficult for smaller farms to get a hoof in the door.
We only have 4 USDA facilities in New Hampshire. These farmers have to schedule a year to 2 years out. They don't even know what's going to be born.
The House Environment and Agriculture Committee is working on a bill that could mount a direct challenge to USDA control of locally produced meat, allowing for custom slaughtering to produce meat that can be sold only within New Hampshire. Reps say the demand is there, pointing to the way more eateries are highlighting where they get their food.
They have a blackboard that they put up and they say where they got their hamburger from and where they got their produce from.
But there's a catch. If and when this moves forward, the farm or farms that go against USDA regulations are likely to face a federal crackdown.
A federal crackdown. And how do you think the USDA is functioning now that the government is shut down? So this industry that's already struggling, especially in smaller rural areas with less population, they're really struggling. Now the USDA is facing cuts and a shutdown, and you're buying elsewhere. This Nebraska farmer talks about the beef sales specifically.
Hello, ag friends. Hopefully your fall is going well. You know, some days you feel like you just can't catch a break in agriculture, but the cattle sector is one of the real bright spots here in the industry, and certainly in Nebraska, where we have a lot of mama cows. But unfortunately, we have an administration that thinks that they need to lower the price of beef. President Trump on Friday actually made a statement that said we should lower the price of beef, and ultimately that's lowering the price of cattle. That's not something we need to do. I just want our members to know that Nebraska Farm Bureau is adamantly opposed to anything that would artificially lower the price of beef. We have worked hard to get our cattle market where it is. It's a supply and demand issue right now, but quite frankly, we need this bright spot here in Nebraska. So I have communicated with all of our federal delegation and let them know that we are opposed to any move that would artificially lower the price of beef cattle. They have worked that up to the leadership already today. And so stay tuned as we kind of follow this story. Hopefully we can get this tamped down. But just want to make sure that you know that I'm doing everything that I can as your president of Nebraska Farm Bureau to ensure that our beef sector here in Nebraska and the country continues to thrive. Until next time.
The farmers are talking about, we already have an unbelievably unfair trade deficit when it comes to beef. The American government already buys $800 million worth of beef from Argentina. Argentina only buys $7 million worth from us. So it's already way unbalanced, and now we're going to buy more. Now we're saying we're buying more. We're ramping it up, cutting into their profits some more. And these farmers are like, look, not only is the beef itself just not as good, they're going to mix in imported beef from really bad areas in with the beef that they give us to make it even cheaper for them. We don't even know the quality of beef we're going to get. They don't have a working USDA like we do. They'll just send us whatever. And And they have a history of foot and mouth disease in their beef. So we're going to increase the odds that the American people get that. Oh, and by the way, the CDC is in flames. We're not really doing anything with diseases and disease prevention right now with the government shutdown and the CDC completely upended. Just keep that in mind. So Trump talked about it.
With soybeans and on Argentina, you're looking to do that deal with Argentina, the bail swap. So
beef?
Are we expecting a beef deal?
I assume you're talking about beef, yeah.
No,
to get beef prices down. The only price we have that's high is beef, and we'll get that down. And one of the things we're thinking about doing is beef from Argentina.
But my question is...
So, that's another little throw into this deal. I guarantee you that was tossed into this loan as they're adding things on both sides of this deal. Well, Argentina will give you $20 billion. We'll give you $20 billion. We need more. Well, cut your ties with China. Well, buy more of our beef. Okay, we'll buy more of your beef, but sell us more of your uranium and lithium. You see how this starts to come together? And when asked about this bailout from a reporter, she asked about this bailout to Argentina. Listen to his response. This is beautiful.
Question is, what do you have to say to U.S. farmers who feel that the deal is benefiting Argentina more than it is them, they are
Argentina's fighting for its life, young lady. You don't know anything about it. They're fighting for their life. Nothing's benefiting Argentina. They're fighting for their life. You understand what that means? They have no money. They have no anything. They're fighting so hard to survive. If I can help them survive in a free world, I happen to like the president of Argentina. I think he's trying to do the best he can. But don't make it sound like they're doing great. They are dying. All right? They're dying.
What do you mean by...
How dare you ask me a perfectly legitimate question about me giving the middle finger to the farming industry while I bail out Argentina for $40 billion? You know nothing, young lady. You don't know. You know what? You want to ask me about this bailout? Watch me ramp it up. They're dying. They're dying. No. What's dying is Milei's control over his country. And he needs these midterm elections to go well. And he needs the peso to be stronger for it to go well. How dare you, young lady, ask on behalf of the farmers why I'm giving them $40 billion. And by the way, there is a little bailout coming for the farmers. Trump has found it in his heart to unfreeze during the shutdown $3 billion for the farming industry. Oh, that's really magnanimous of you, Don. You give Argentina 40. The soybean farmers are losing around $16.5 billion, but you found $3 billion to give to the farmers. Well done. Well done. Off tomorrow, guys. We're off tomorrow.
They'll try to repair the narrative, but Brett Breaks Things will be back tomorrow.